Hello there and welcome to Beads Jar. I'm Natalia, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this wraparound wire bracelet. And we're calling it a buttercup bracelet because the glass beads on it remind me of buttercups. They're really beautiful, and we're also using acrylic pearls and 2 different gauges of wire. So let's have a look at all of the components you're going to need to make this bracelet. So here are the components you'll need to make our buttercup bracelet. This wraparound bracelet is, the major component is this 1.25mm gauge wire, and this is gilt on copper. We're also using some other wire to bind the beads around the bracelet, and this is 0.2 gauge wire, and that again is gilt on copper. Then we're using these yellow transparent speckled beads. So these are glass beads with this beautiful white speckling on them. These come in packs of 10, and I've used 13 on my bracelet. So if you order 2 packs, if you want to have a nice bead encrusted bracelet, you'll need 2 packs of those. And then we've got these white acrylic beads. These are 6mm, and we also have some head pins. So I've got head pins in gold plate here, 1.5 inch. So I'm using 4 of those. And then the tools that you're going to need your flush cutter pliers, your chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, and then I also like to smooth my wire out because it does get kinked while you're making this bracelet, with the nylon jaw pliers. So now we've shown you everything you're going to need. Let's get started making the bracelet. So first of all, we're going to measure our wire out. So I'm using the 1.25 gauge wire, and this is a wraparound bracelet, so you need it to wrap twice around your wrist. So just cut it to the exact length that you want. There's not going to be any reduction in length. You know, when you're making a ring and you're wire wrapping it, the ring gets smaller. And that's not going to happen with this bracelet. So I'm going to chop it off about there. I'm using my flush cutter pliers to do that. So that is my length of wire that I'm going to need for my wrist. Now you can, at this point, then stretch your wire out, because you don't need it to be in the coils. You're going to form the bracelet shape later on. And for now, just to get it going, we're just going to take the nylon jaw pliers over the wire just to get it perfectly smooth. We don't want any indentations on there. You can do the rest of it later. You can see it's all sort of wibbly wobbly there, but I can use those nylon jaw pliers later. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to take one of these speckled glass beads and pop it onto the top of my wire. I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I want to have a loop. I'm going to do a loop twice, so I want it around 1/3 of the way along those round nose pliers, because that is going to be the thickness of my loop, the width of the opening of it. And I'm just going to turn that to a loop once and then twice, so that the end of the loop is there. So we've got like this lovely little loop shape, and it's all very neat. So then I can push my bead right up to the edge of that. I'm going to start wrapping wire from here. So I'm taking some of my 0.2mm wire. Now this is very fine, and we want to make sure that we don't break it in the process of using it. So the way to start winding it on is just to leave a little tail of wire like that, and I'm just going to take the right hand side of my wire. I'm holding that with my thumb down, and then I'm just going to start wrapping around. So I'm going away from myself, away from the other end of the wire, and I'm just wrapping a coil. Now when I get to here, to the opening of the bead, if I just leave that like that, the bead is going to start sliding down. So I need to start wrapping over and over and over itself right at the base of the bead, to make sure that it stays in place and it doesn't wander down the bracelet. So wrap that around a few times, just pushing that coil up. And I'm going to take my wire back along. You can leave it on the reel if you want, if you're comfortable working like that. I prefer to keep cutting off lengths of wire because I just end up getting in a big mess with the wire. And then when I get back down to where my tail is, I'm just going to push that wire up. And then we're going to start to cover the tail over. So then what happens is it just gets completely covered with the coil of wire as we go along. So it's nice and secure there. It's always about security when you're making jewellery and you're using wire. So the next thing that I'm going to then do is to thread on one of my acrylic pearls. So I'm just placing that on the end of the wire. So you see, if you use the whole coil of wire, you'll be threading for ages. So it is better to just keep adding pieces of wire to your design, and you can keep securing the wire as you go along when you get to the end of it. So I'm going to just turn my bead on its side like that, and then take my wire and then just start threading it, coiling it around. So I'm holding my bead in place. So do 3 or 4 coils, and then just to make sure that that bead really stays put, I take my wire around the base of the pearl a few times. So do it quite tightly. You can take it around there and then back around the pearl so that you end up back on this side, because that's the side that we're working along. Well, we're going to start adorning this piece of wire with our pearls. So I'm going to One thing about the length of wire, you've got this end and it does catch on things, so just be careful that it doesn't catch on your clothing. And you will find it easier to coil at the short end. So I'm just going to wrap around a few more times. So basically you're covering up the base wire, and it looks really attractive, this, because you've got these lovely coiling of wire going on that creates this base for the beads to sit on. And then my pattern is that I have a second acrylic pearl. Be careful with the wire that it doesn't go to a point like that, because it's hard to thread the beads on when it does that. It's like getting a knot in a piece of thread. So I'm threading another pearl on here and doing exactly the same thing again. So I'm just going to twist it to the side so the holes are facing the bead, and then I'm going to just wrap around a few times. Once I've got that fairly secure, I can start wrapping from this edge. So you're wrapping quite tightly your coils. Then you're going to go back and around the base of the pearl again. And be careful not to do it too tightly, because this wire is fragile, it will break. Now if your wire does break while you're making this, which it did to me when I was doing my my sample bracelet, all you do is just coil off your wire, so wrap it around, cut off a new piece of wire, and then do like I did at the beginning, wrap your wire over the tail to cover it up. So you can see what you're doing with those beads is you're just positioning them. They can articulate around because we're using wire, so that's what's really good for that. And then I'm going to just coil again, and then I'm going to show you how to add your next sequence in the pattern is one of the glass beads, the buttercup little speckled beads. So I'm leaving around 2 centimeters between each bead. You can have it even more encrusted if that's what you prefer. That was my preference, to do it that way. So just keep pushing with your nail, pushing that those coils up together so that they're nice and tight. And then we're going to put our next glass bead on, and I'm going to do that by threading it on. So because the wire is very thin and it will hold the acrylic pearls, but these are heavier. So the acrylic pearls won't thread onto this because it's too wide. And the wire will hold them because they're light enough, but these beads are heavy, so we can slide it onto our 1.2 wire. And then you want to make sure that the working wire that you're using threads through that hole there. So let's just pop that on. And then feed the bead there. So then what we're going to do is do the wrapping around. I'm just going to turn this the other way so that I can do it a little bit easier. And again, when you're wrapping around, you're going to make sure that you're wrapping on top of the wire so that you get almost like a little platform for the bead to sit on. Because what we don't want to happen is that the wire then starts to, the bead starts to creep down the wire. So we're just going to create this kind of extra sort of wrapping around here to almost plug it in place. And then start wrapping down the wire again so that we can then place our next 2 pearls. And that's the sequence you're going to do. You're going to do a speckled bead, then you're going to do 2 pearls, speckled bead, and so on until you get to the very end of your wire. So as you can see, I've completed that. I've got all of my beads wrapped and attached to the whole of the length of the bracelet. Now when you get to the other end, you want to make sure that you just coil your loop of the wire up like this. You're going to need to cut it to the right length and then just take your round nose pliers and coil to have 2 matching ends like that. And then the next thing that we need to do is to shape the bracelet. So if you have a bracelet mandrel, use that. Now instead of that, you need to improvise with jewellery making. Have a look around the house, see what you can find. We looked in the office and vitamin D tablet, which is very handy to form the bracelet, and you can literally just bend it around. So that was the kind of width that I wanted for the bracelet. So then just slide it off and then just make sure that you've got it how you want it. You can maybe just pull it in a little bit more, but that just helps you to form that curve, that bracelet shape, and then you get your lovely wraparound bracelet. Simple as that. So our final step is to attach some little beads to hang off these coils, because I just thought that would be a really nice touch, a finishing touch for that. So that's where you're going to need your head pins. So I'm going to bring in, we're going to use 2 pearls and 2 head pins for each end, for each little coil. So to attach these, you're just going to pop a head pin onto your acrylic pearl. And then I want a fairly big loop on this. So I'm taking it really near to the center of my round nose pliers. Just going to bend that to a right angle, reposition my plier and take the wire over the top. So I'm leaving that open, it looks like a question mark. And then I'm going to pop that through the loop. And then we're going to just grab hold of the loop with my round nose pliers and take that around the base of the loop, the excess wire. And this is where you need your chain nose pliers to just help guide that wire around. You're going to wrap the excess wire around. You can take it all the way around if you want, or you can just take it around a couple of times and then trim off the excess. Whichever you find it easiest. I think I'm going to find it easier to trim with my chain nose pliers. And just to check that the wire is tucked in nicely, I just use my chain nose pliers, just press it down. So we've got 1 of those little dangling pearls on there. I'm going to attach another one. I'll show you again how to do this. So we attach the head pin to the pearl, take the round nose pliers at the fairly near the center, take your wire to a right angle, take your wire back over, and then attach the excess wire through the loop using our round nose pliers. This is a little bit of a tricky maneuver, but you're just going to do that. and you're going to wrap your wire around your pearl a couple of times like that. And then you can trim off the excess. And then finally just using your chain nose pliers to press that wire into place to tidy it up, make sure it's not sticking out and catching on anything. And there you have your little droplet pearls hanging from the edge, and it just makes a nice little finishing touch, and it articulates when you're wearing it. So you would repeat that on the other side as well. So there you can see our completed bracelet where we've added on the little pearls to adorn the coils at the end, and it just adds a really nice finishing touch, and that is our bracelet ready to wear. So all you do is you just pop it onto your hand. You can reposition it then, just tighten it up. You can have it as tight or as loose as you like, but it looks very pretty and very effective. Thank you for watching our video today. I hope that's inspired you to make your own buttercup bracelet. And don't forget to have a look in the Show More section where you'll find links to all of the things that I've used today and the thousands of other jewellery components we have on our website. Also subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our future jewellery tutorials.